With Diontae Johnson getting traded to the Carolina Panthers yesterday, that leaves a hole at not just one wide receiver spot on the Steelers roster, but two. So today we're going to be talking about the options that GM Omar Khan has to replace not only Diontae Johnson's spot in the Steelers wide receiver room, but also Allen Robinson's spot in the slot. So they've definitely got some interesting possibilities in front of them, and we're going to be breaking them down today. Yesterday, we actually reacted to the trade bringing Dante Jackson here to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that sent Diontae Johnson to the Carolina Panthers. So I'm going to put the link to that video in the comments and description of today's show in case you want to see my reaction to that trade. And also make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss a video. We're all throughout free agency, all throughout the offseason. If the Steelers make a move, we are going to have you covered with a breaking news video for free right here on YouTube. And if it's a big enough move, we're going to be going live for you guys. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. It's already been a super exciting week for Steelers Nation. It's only going to get better here with these glaring needs still on the roster. So make sure you click that subscribe button. And let's get into today's action where we're talking wide receivers. And I think that the way that the Steelers are going to approach this position, because they do need to get two new receivers to start alongside George Pickens next year. I think they're going to fill one of those spots still in free agency with an affordable veteran wide receiver. And then I think they're going to spend an early draft pick either in round 1 or round 2 to take one of the top wide receiver draft prospects in this year's NFL draft. There's certainly a lot of them. This is probably the best wide receiver draft in recent memory, if not NFL history. All right, so there's plenty of options for the Steelers to consider. So let's start with the free agents, because this is going to be the first move that they make to replace Diontae Johnson, and there's definitely some interesting possibilities out there. So we'll start with Calvin Ridley, because I think this is probably the least likely option that's getting thrown around out there. He's expected to make about like $18 million per season. He had kind of a disappointing year last year with the Jacksonville Jaguars. You could do a lot worse than Calvin Ridley. He's a bigger receiver, so he fits the mold of what Arthur Smith is looking for, but I do think he's going to be a bit too expensive, and the reports are saying that he's going to re-sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars at some point here in the next couple of hours or so. And then also another guy to consider here is Tyler Boyd, and this is somebody that is definitely going to be someone to watch out for because he's a Pittsburgh native. He went to the University of Pittsburgh, played at Acrisure State and plays college ball there with the Pitt Panthers, and he's somebody that has said he wants to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers at some point during his career. Now he's a free agent. He is a good fit in Arthur Smith's system. He would be kind of like that bigger slot receiver. That's a good blocker, very reliable hands, good route runner, very reliable number 3 wide receiver here for the Pittsburgh Steelers to consider. Plus, he would play his ass off for his hometown team. Then this is an interesting one here. Odell Beckham Jr. Now, I wouldn't necessarily peg OBJ as like a perfect fit in Arthur Smith's offense. It's not like he's like a bruising run blocker or anything like that, but new quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers here, Russell Wilson and Odell Beckham Jr., they're boys, man. They're like best friends. That they hang out during the offseason. They work out together during the offseason, and they've never played together in the National Football League. So this is kind of their opportunity to potentially do that. Odell Beckham Jr. might take a big discount to come to Pittsburgh, and he gets to play his former teams in both the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens twice a year if he's playing for the black and gold. So listen, man, if he's offering to come play for you for like $3 million or something crazy like that, it's something that Omar Khan definitely has to consider because he is still a pretty darn good wide receiver. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Which wide receiver will the Steelers sign in free agency this offseason? You can pretty much book it. They're going to sign one of these guys in free agency this year. So for today's pinned comment, go down there and let me know which one you think is going to end up being a Pittsburgh Steeler in 2024. 3 more options to consider here for the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency. Michael Thomas, kind of a bigger slot receiver, kind of fits the mold of what Mike Tomlin traditionally likes in that bigger slot receiver. Obviously, good run blocker at his size. Now, he's not the most dynamic guy. He's not going to be like a downfield threat for Russell Wilson, but he's a tactician as a route runner. Now, the big thing for him is, can he stay healthy? I'm guessing the Steelers could get a pretty decent price for him if they bring him in, but he's probably not my number one option. And maybe the under-the-radar guy that I think actually has a pretty decent chance of getting signed is Josh Reynolds, formerly with the Detroit Lions. He's a bigger wide receiver. He can play outside or in the slot. He is a good run blocker. He did that a lot in Detroit's run-heavy system last season. So I think he's a really good fit. I think you can get him at a really reasonable price, and I think this is definitely somebody that the Steelers are going to have their eye on. And then somebody that's kind of an Arthur Smith guy here is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, bigger wide receiver, hands receiver in the red zone, and he's also really fast for his size. So he's an excellent run blocker. He's a great straight line athlete, and he provides the size advantage in the red zone. The only thing with this guy, though, is that he's not a particularly great route runner. He can't really separate against man coverage, and that's going to bring deja vu back to me here with Allen Robinson, because that's what he couldn't do last year. I think Arthur Smith could use him in some interesting ways, so watch out for a potential signing there. Plus, he won't cost all that much. But Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is somebody to watch out for. And then also be on the lookout for guys like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. The Chargers need to get under, with the new league year starting today, actually, they have to get under the salary cap number, and they have to likely release both or at least one of these two players, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And I really think Keenan Allen is the guy to watch out for here, because Mike Williams, he's a bigger receiver. He kind of fits the George Pickens mold, but I think Keenan Allen might be the type of guy that the Steelers want to bring in as a complement to George Pickens, because Keenan Allen is an absolute tactician. He can play outside. He can play inside. He's over 210 pounds. He's a bigger wide receiver, and he's an excellent run blocker. Now, he has had injuries in the past. He is getting older, all these different things, but I think because of those things, the Steelers could get a great discount on a guy like Keenan Allen, who is still looking for his first Super Bowl championship, and he fits what the culture wants here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He fits what Arthur Smith wants in a wide receiver, and it's definitely something that I think could be beneficial for both sides. He's been one of the most productive receivers in the National Football League over the last decade or so. He had over 1,200 yards receiving last year. In just 13 games played, he averaged over 11 yards per catch, which is unbelievable. He's still an incredible route runner. I really, really like Keenan Allen, guys, and I'd love to see him in black and gold. Now, coming up, the top wide receiver draft targets. We talked about the guys that they might bring in free agency this offseason, but I think that the big piece, the big prize that they're hunting is in the 2024 NFL Draft. We'll talk about the top guys here in just a second, but first let's talk about our friends at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app, or go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. Football season is over, which means in comes March Madness, and of course NBA playoffs are right around the corner as well. Whether it's tournament season in college basketball or the fight for playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of the year, and you can get in on the excitement with our friends at Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app in the United States of America. So if you're wondering how it works, here's how you play. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can even win up to 25 times your money on any entry. So here's my entry for tonight's NBA action. I'm going to take the more for James Harden points. I'm going to take the more with the Goblin here with Jalen Suggs points at 7.5, and I'll take the less with Jamal Murray at 21.5 points tonight. You can get on the action right now when you download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. With Prize Picks, it takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks, so you can get your picks in now before tip-off. Tonight, you can go college basketball, NBA, even NASCAR, all right? They've got even NASCAR on Prize Picks. So if that's your bag, go ahead and get that done. Again, download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. Pick more or pick less. It's that easy with our friends at Prize Picks. So here's the list of formal meetings that the Steelers had at the NFL Combine this year among receivers. And the trend here is that all of these receivers are expected to go by the end of round 2 or so. So that's kind of where I think the Steelers are looking at in terms of taking a wide receiver either with their round 1 pick or with their round 2 pick. And, of course, the big name right there is Rome Odunze. They would probably have to trade up inside the top 10 to get him, and I'm not sure if the Steelers are going to be willing to do that. But obviously he's a big receiver. He fits what the Steelers are looking for. And if you can pair Rome Odunze with George Pickens up for the next decade, holy schnitzel, Russell Wilson is going to have a couple of weapons to throw deep down the field too. But also, guys, I really like the value at the end of the first round. You don't have to trade up for Rome Odunze to get a really good receiver. Brian Thomas Jr., 6'4", and he's a great deep threat. Same thing with A.D. Mitchell, producer Coop's guy. Honestly, he's my number 4 receiver in this year's draft class. I love A.D. Mitchell. I love the route running. I love the deep threat ability. He has 4.35 speed, and he's 6'4". He's got the complete package, in my opinion. And they also met with Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin, and Jalen McMillan. Those guys are probably round 2 prospects. Then some of the informal meetings that we know that the Steelers had at the Combine. Ricky Pearsall, another one of Coop's guys from the University of Florida. He's an absolute dog in the run game. He's a great run blocker, great route runner as well. And he also had one of, if not the greatest catch I've ever seen a college wide receiver make ever with that one-handed catch he had over the middle with corners all over the place. Also, Roman Wilson absolutely dominated the Senior Bowl. He's going to be an option. Mike Tomlin seems to really like him and his pedigree. And then Tez Walker, do not draft Tez Walker. All right, he stinks. I mean, if you had a problem with Diontae Johnson's drops, and listen, man, over the last 5 seasons, he was second in the league in drops with 33. Tez Walker would be dropping even more than him. I mean, goodness gracious, when you turn on the film, Tez Walker's fast, but he is not a good football player, in my opinion. And some other fits here that the Steelers, or at least we don't know that they've met with yet. Ladd McConkey in Georgia. Now, Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, and Arthur Smith are there to watch Ladd McConkey at the Georgia Pro Day today. Now, obviously, they're there to meet with Amarius Mims and Cedric Van Pran and probably Kamari Lassiter as well. But Ladd McConkey is a very interesting wide receiver, runs in the 4.3s, excellent route runner. He's probably going to be a top 10 route runner in the National Football League the second he walks into the NFL. And then Xavier Legette is a very interesting fit here, in my opinion, because he reminds me a lot of A.J. Brown. Or he's a bigger receiver, really fast. I mean, this is the type of guy that can take a slant to the house, the way that A.J. Brown was able to do that in Arthur Smith's offense in Tennessee. Artie Smith made A.J. Brown a star in Tennessee, and I think they're going to look at Xavier Legette as a similar type of talent that they can mold into a potential star next to George Pickens, who's going to be their deep threat. Now, these are my favorite fits here. I like the Rome Odunze fit, obviously, but I mean, I honestly, you look at the rest of this list here, and it's a bunch of guys you don't necessarily have to trade up for. So I would probably rather go out and get an Adonai Mitchell at pick number 20, or a Brian Thomas Jr. if AD has already been taken. And then in round 2, if you can't get those top 3 guys, I think Xavier Legette is gettable in your second round draft slot. Right now, Pro Football Focus has him ranked as just the 64 ranked prospect in this year's draft class. That tells you how good this draft class is, and I'm super excited to see how Omar Khan is going to address this wide receiver position after sending Diontae Johnson to the Carolina Panthers. So let me know down there in the comment section, who's your guy? Which wide receiver do you want the Steelers to draft in either the first or second round this year in the NFL draft? Let me know. All right, I'm excited to see who you guys want. Do you want to trade up for Rome Odunze? Are you okay with A.D. Mitchell? Do you want to wait till round 2 and take a guy like Xavier Legette or Keon Coleman? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section, what you guys think. So now let's shift from the wide receiver position here, and let's talk a little bit more about the newest corner for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Dante Jackson, who, of course, was included in the Diontae Johnson trade. And listen, the Steelers obviously feel really good about what Dante Jackson is bringing to the Pittsburgh Steelers because they essentially traded for him straight up with Diontae Johnson. Now, you can say that, that Omar Khan got punked or whatever because Carolina was reportedly going to let Dante go if they couldn't find a trade partner for him. But, man, I was looking over the film last night. I barely got any sleep. But, man, I really like Dante Jackson's game, and I think that when healthy, he's going to be a really solid number 2 cornerback in this defense next to Joey Porter Jr. I mean, the speed is legit, guys. 4.31, absolute lightning fast. The short area quicks are definitely there. And when you combine that speed and the short area quickness, his man coverage ability is really, really good stuff. And he also plays very physical. He's a little bit shorter and a little bit smaller at 5'10", 181, but this guy is a stick of dynamite, man. This guy he plays with the right mentality. He plays physical at the catch point as well. And I love his ability in man coverage, which is what he's going to be playing here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And also, he was a multiple-year captain on the defense there for the Carolina Panthers. This guy's a fantastic locker room leader, and I think that's definitely something that entered into the equation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the cons with Dante Jackson, definitely the size. He's had a big injury history, and also there's inconsistent play. He's very aggressive, and when he's in zone coverage, that can be an issue for Dante Jackson because he can get beat on double moves from time to time. So listen, Dante's not going to be on the number one receiver. That's going to be JPJ on the other side. So I think Dante is really going to work out here. I think he's a really good number 2 corner for this team. But I could also see Pittsburgh trying to move him to the slot. I mean, he's got the speed and he's got the short area quickness, and he has kind of the ideal size to be a slot cornerback. Now, Carolina never played him in the slot. He only played outside. He's really only played outside, even going back to college. So it'd definitely be a new position for him. But Mike Tomlin is definitely not afraid to move some of these guys to new positions. And I think Dante Jackson has the skill set and has the physical profile to eventually become a slot corner in this league, especially if they get an outside corner that they like in the NFL draft this year. Also, the report is coming out here that Pittsburgh is likely to rework Dante Jackson's contract here. Right now, his cap hit is slated to be over $10 million. I'd expect them to give him probably another year on his contract and maybe make it like a $6 million cap hit, give him a little bit more money, give him another year, and lower his cap hit for 2024. So now let's talk about some updated team needs here because it is day 3 of NFL free agency. We're actually going to be going live 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the channel today. Don't miss out because if they make a move, we're going to be covering it today live on the channel. But there's still quite a few needs that Omar Khan needs to address. We talked about wide receiver today. They have to address 2 of those positions by the start of the NFL season. They also need another cornerback, whether that be a slot guy, whether that be outside. Whatever the case may be, they still need to add one more starting corner to this secondary group. They also need a starting center, a starting left or right tackle, depending on where they plan to play Broderick Jones. And then they need a starting strong safety. So the Steelers definitely need to get to work. And then they also need depth at corner. They need depth at inside linebacker, especially if they're going to cut Cole Holcomb. They need depth at safety, and they need depth on the defensive line. So the projected cap space right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into day 3 here, it's just over $17 million. And that might not seem like a whole lot to you, especially given the amount of urgent needs that the Steelers have right now, but they can still restructure Minkah Fitzpatrick. They can still restructure Alex Highsmith. They can still restructure Cam Hayward. So trust me, guys, more moves are going to be on the way here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to fill out these positions. There's still a lot of really good safeties available. There's still a lot of really good fits at the wide receiver position. I think they got to make a move at center pretty quickly, guys. I'm not going to lie. But when those moves happen, when Omar Khan ends up filling out these roster holes, we are going to have you guys covered with breaking news coverage right here on the channel. Coop and I, we're going to be going live at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central here in Dallas, Texas. So we'll see you guys then. Make sure you click that subscribe button for breaking news coverage. And until next time, here we go, Steelers.